Well, hello. This is Tony from Ephraim International Ministries, and today I want to continue talking about our topic we started a few weeks ago on the church before Rome. And spent a lot of time doing some setup work, but today I want to get into some of the stuff that these guys, these believers of ours, what they wrote about in the second, third century. See what their views were, and see if they deviated from the doctrine of the apostles, of Moses, of course, the Messiah, Yeshua himself, the prophets. Okay, now I'm only going to focus on some of the prominent men that have existed during this era, only because they're the most recognized by all of Christendom, and they have a lot of writings that we can sift through. Okay, I don't know how long this teaching is going to be or take, but there's so much material and that I can talk about, dissect, but we'll see what happens. First guy I want to talk about is Irenaeus of Lyons, also known as the Bishop of Lyon in France. So who was this guy? Well, he lived between 130 and 202 AD. He was from Smyrna, a city in ancient Greece, now known as Izmir, which is now a city in Turkey. This man has a collection of at least 5 books that focus on him dealing with combating different types of heresies in the day. Okay, remember last time we talked about how Gnosticism had crept through the church, even to the point where even as early as the days of Paul. Okay, and now this is 100 years after, so it's let's just say it's getting progressively worse. Okay, and there's different crazy ideas out there. So, like I said, I'm just going to be pulling out different quotes from these 5 documents from this guy. There's other guys to deal with as well. So, like I said before, I don't know how long this is going to take. We're not going to sift through everything here, but we'll take some of the main things and we'll talk about them. Okay. So we'll start off with the in the first book, and he talks about a man known as Marcion. I'm sure a bunch of us have heard of him. Now remember, he's dealing with heresies. Okay, so keep that in mind. So what's it say here? Marcion. Oh, I have to go back here. Marcion of Pontus succeeded him, Cerdo, and developed his doctrine. In doing so, he advanced the most daring blasphemy against him who was proclaimed as God by the law and the prophets, declaring him to be the author of evils, to take delight in war, to be infirm of purpose, and even to be contrary in self. Okay? So again, this is the kind of guys we're dealing with here. A guy he pretty much thinks that, the Old Testament God is a different God. Okay, let's continue. But Jesus, being derived from that Father who is above the God that made the world, and coming into Judea in times of Pontius Pilate, the governor, who was the procurator of Tiberius Caesar, was manifest in the form of a man to those who were in Judea, abolishing the prophets and the law, and all the works of that God who made the world, whom also he calls Cosmocrator. Okay? So, again, we're talking about this man Marcion, and as we can see, his doctrine is pretty out in left field, isn't it? He thought, like I said before, he thought of the God of the Old Testament as one who was evil, and that Jesus Christ was a better version of him. Okay? So Irenaeus was picking off a bunch of these things that Marcion had wrong. Right? Number 1, the God of the Old Testament was evil. Right? We know that ain't the case. Jesus was above his Father, even though Jesus said that the Father is greater than I. said that a few times, didn't he? That Jesus abolished the law and the prophets. And I don't think he did that, as we read in Matthew 5:17 there. Jesus abolished all the works of God, the works of creation. Like, this stuff is total blasphemy right here. He called our Father a cosmic creator, which is like calling him the devil. Okay? So these are, and there's a bunch of guys like him. This guy is really prominent, Marcion. Now, before I read the next set of writings, for the sake of not reading everything because of time, I just want to set the context, okay? Excuse me. Now, Irenaeus again is dealing with another heresy that suggests that the prophets of the Old Testament received prophecies from different gods, as opposed to just one true God. He then maintains that the notion that all these titles, such as the Lord of Powers, the Father of all, God Almighty, the Most High, the Creator, the Maker, okay? He's suggesting that these are all different gods. And Irenaeus is like, no, they're all the same God. Okay, so just keep this text in mind as we read this. This is from the second book he wrote. It says, "Now the preaching of the apostles, the authoritative teaching of the Lord, the announcements of the prophets, the dictated utterances of the apostles, and the ministration of the law, all of which praise one and the same being." Okay, he's trying to bring it all back together again. "The God and Father of all, and not many diverse beings, nor one deriving his substance from different gods or powers, but declare that all things were formed by one and the same Father, who nevertheless adapts this works to the natures and tendencies of the materials dealt with, things visible and invisible, and in short, all things that have been made were created neither by angels nor by any other statements has, I think, been sufficiently proved, while by these weighty arguments it has been shown that there is but one God, the maker of all things." Okay, so now he talks about what? The preaching of the apostles, right? The authoritative teaching of the Lord, Yeshua. The announcements of the prophets, all the old prophecies there. The dictated utterances of the apostles, right? Their teachings, their prophecies. And of course, the ministration of the law. Okay, so again, if Paul suggested to us that the law is done away with and nailed to the cross, why would Irenaeus even include this statement about the ministration of the law as part of the doctrine of the early church? Okay, the pure doctrine. Okay, now did things sway off a little bit from the time Paul left the earth and this man showed up? Probably. Does this guy have 100% doctrine? Probably not. Because again, they're fighting Gnosticism, right? Let's keep that in mind. Next quote from the third book. "For all those who are of a perverse mind, having been set against the Mosaic legislation," my apologies, "judging it to be dissimilar and contrary to the doctrine of the gospel, have not applied themselves to investigate the causes of the difference of each covenant." Okay? Why? Because the law of God and the gospel, they're one and the same. Okay? Why? Because they work together. You can't have one without the other. Right? What's the gospel? The message of the kingdom. The coming king, Yeshua. The new city coming down. Right? The law of God written on our hearts. That's the gospel. Okay? Let's read another from the fourth book. Excuse me. "And therefore, The Lord reproved those who unjustly blamed him for having healed upon the Sabbath days. For he did not make void, but fulfilled the law, by performing the offices of the high priest, propitiating God for men, and cleansing the lepers, healing the sick, and himself suffering death, that exiled man might go forth from condemnation, and might return without fear to his own inheritance. Okay? Now, this kind of sounds familiar, doesn't it? Okay, let's tie that to what Yeshua talked about in Matthew 5. And we've all heard this. Think not that I have come to destroy the law or the prophets. I've not come to destroy, but to fulfill. Okay, the problem is a lot of us stop at the word think not, and we don't think any further than that. But again, this man Irenaeus is just quoting the Lord himself. He's not inventing new doctrine like this Marcion guy was. He's trying to stick to the script. Okay, and let's read another verse in Romans that ties into this. Romans 3:31. Do we make void the law through faith? God forbid. We establish the law. Okay, so just when you think even a man like Paul starts talking about, well, see, he's talking about nailing the law to the cross. Just when you think he says that, he pulls off a statement like this to say, guys, if you thought that I said what you think I thought you said, then I'm going to bring this back in line and tell you, listen, guys, the law is not going away with. It's been established forever. Okay? You can't have something on one hand nailed to the cross, and on the other hand, having that same thing nailed to the cross written on your heart. How does that work? It's either gone or it's not gone. Okay, so we have to read the scriptures in that context. Okay, and Paul understood that. Remember, Paul was dealing with a lot of garbage that he had to deal with. He had to deal with Jews that come in. They believed, but they were very zealous of not only the law of God, but they were also zealous of the traditions of men. Okay, and just because you get saved, it doesn't mean that you erase everything that you learned before. You have to still unlearn some things. And some of these new believers didn't realize that at first. Okay? So when you hear about Paul talking about the law of God, okay, it's all about context. It's all about bringing a balance to this thing. We're not going to have a guy come into the faith and then 2 days later be circumcised. Okay? It doesn't work that way, guys. It's a progression. It's a progression. It talks about in Acts how they went to the synagogue every Sabbath to learn Moses. Okay, step by step. Here a little, there a little. Okay, and that's how it works. And these are the kind of things that Paul is talking about. Okay, so we're just going to stop it there. And next time we're going to talk about more quotes. I probably didn't time this very well with all these quotes, but I'll do a better job next time. And we're going to see what these guys talked about, what they were dealing with. Again, did these guys have 100% doctrine? Probably not. Okay, just like we don't. Okay, so shalom, and we'll see you next time.